Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here on USA Global TV and radio. Hopefully you're joining us for multiple programs every week. We currently have 29 live broadcasts each week, each with different topics. Our goal here is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Our show today is going to be fantastic, as always, because of Mr. Philip Sykes, the star of our show. He's the principal of the British School of Excellence, and we're going to be talking about table manners today. Let's welcome Philip and find out what he's got to share with us today. Hello.
A good morning to you, Dr. JACALYN. Good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there, wherever you are in the world. It's, as I always say, Friday, and a joy to be with you all. And today I'm so excited to share with you some insights into the importance of table manners and dining etiquette.
Brilliant. I love every show that we do together because I'm constantly learning something. And, you know, Philip, for people who are joining us the first time, whether it's on the TV, it's the radio, or the podcast platform, people have misperceptions about etiquette, that it's only for posh people. Can you just speak a little bit to the fact that it's really for everyone?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For anyone out there who really feels that the word etiquette or manners is old-fashioned, I really would ask you to think again and really take a bit of a sort of a broader view and to take a look into the power of etiquette and manners. When Dr. JACALYN and I were thinking about the show together, we came up with this term, the power of etiquette and manners, just as the power of listening. There is so much power in the way we conduct ourselves. And when you conduct yourself, you know, clearly, with great respect, you present yourself well, and you come across with confidence, you will always stand out for the right reasons rather than the wrong reasons. And that is really what the power of etiquette and manners will enable you to do. It gives you these quintessential tools that you put your best foot forward. It doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter which friends you might have, it doesn't matter which organization you work for. Etiquette and manners, along with your emotional intelligence, when I talk about etiquette and manners, the power of it, that very much encompasses EQ, your emotional intelligence, because I truly, again, as an organization, we believe that when you've got a solid platform with emotional intelligence, it's almost near impossible to have bad etiquette and manners. And when you can adopt and understand how important etiquette and manners are, you will see how your life will change. And I'm talking about creating a way of life, a lifestyle. This is not turning your manners and etiquette on just as and when you need to. I'm talking about bringing in consistency into your life and giving you those fundamental tools, solid tools that will elevate you to a completely different level. And we have the most incredible people come through our programs from all walks of life, from doctors to lawyers to professors to people who've been the most incredible mums bringing their children up, dads bringing their children up, who've come through our program. And on our YouTube channel, they actually openly talk about their experience on how this has shifted and changed their life. So think about it, ladies and gentlemen, like the traffic lights in society. Etiquette and manners are there so that we don't bump into each other. We actually form phenomenal friendships and relationships, and we show respect for one another. And really, etiquette and manners is about one race, and that's the human race. We need to understand one another better, and we need to make an extra special effort with one another.
Brilliant as always. Thank you, Philip. And when it comes to table manners, are you speaking strictly as to when we go to an event or we go out to a restaurant, or does this apply in everyday life as well?
Again, everyday life, whether you're going for your quick fast McDonald's to a quick Burger King, or we've got GBK here in the United Kingdom, or your Five Guys, right down to, you know, a normal sort of cafeteria stroke bistro to, you know, a fine dining restaurant, you would always, again, like your manners and etiquette, be consistent. It doesn't mean you can't hold your hamburger in your hand. It's not saying it doesn't mean you can't pick up your slice of pizza in your hand at all. Those things are acceptable. But how are you conducting yourself at the table? Are you a good conversationalist? Do you think about your fellow diners? Are you there slouching over the table with your elbows on the table? Are you sitting with bad posture? Are you in check with yourself? Do you really absolutely put your best foot forward? And many viewers and people listening on the various channels will remember or know the name Henry Ford. And he was a fascinating man, and I think one would all agree with that. And he created an incredible organization. But he was fastidious about people's behavior and how they conducted themselves. And at the final hurdle for an interview, Henry Ford would get the candidate to come along to one of his chosen restaurants. And that candidate would be observed from the moment they walk through the front door. How did they greet the team that welcomed them into the restaurant? How did they walk in? How did they choose to dress that day? When they sat at the table, how did they connect with fellow diners? When they chose their food, were they respectful to the waitering team? And when the food arrived, was that individual quick to throw salt and pepper on their food before tasting it? Or did they taste it and then, only then, decide to add seasoning? And for anyone who threw seasoning on their food first off without tasting it, they were out the window, they were out the door, because for Henry Ford, that was a bad decision maker. So think about your table manners and dining etiquette. There is so much that it will tell you about tell you about a person. Because let's put it simply, how we hold our knife and fork and how we eat, there's nowhere to hide. Whereas we can all put a whole lot of nonsense on our resume and CV. We might get the job, and a month down the line, only then be found out that we were telling porcupines. But the moment we pick up a knife and fork, or the moment you pick up a pair of chopsticks, or the moment you sit at any table, whether it be breakfast, lunch, brunch, or dinner, there's so much that one can tell about you, and it's how you show up.
Absolutely correct. And Philip, I just want to share, when I was in my corporate career, the last two places I worked, which I worked there for a long time altogether, I want to say 20 years, we, in the interview process at both places, had to go and meet executives at a restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's exactly what they were observing. They didn't tell us this, but that's exactly how it ended up. And we also had to come with our spouse or significant other for the dinner, so they could see how the two of us interacted if we would be taking out clients and what that scenario looked like. So it really is very important. I'm going to be turning it over to you. I know you're going to be talking a lot about what we should and shouldn't do. One thing I just want to throw out there I'd love for you to cover is, what if we find that someone is using our bread plate, or they're taking something from our setting or we're doing it? Will you be able to cover that as well?
Absolutely. So that's a fascinating and really interesting question, because how many of us have gone to a restaurant or to a formal dinner or a function where you at a long table and the person on your left-hand side is all of a sudden using your side plate, the person sitting to your right is using your wine glass? It can get quite confusing and embarrassing. So the first thing I'd love you to do, anyone watching out there, if you want to take part, there's some wonderful little tools that I love sharing. The first one is, if we all place our hands like this. Now, I know in some countries this can be I'm not trying to offend anyone. This is just, for example, some countries this might be very rude, but all I want you to do is put your fingers and your thumbs and your index finger and join it, and look at your left hand and what letter have we got. So if I was doing this way, what letter have I got in my left hand? It turns out that that's a B. Okay, and the one on the right is a D. So that, for you, if you're thinking, crumbs, I'm sitting at this table, which is my bread plate, you can just incorporate this little tool. The bread plate will always be on your left-hand side, and your drinks glasses will always be on your right-hand side. Now, I'm talking predominantly Western-style dining. When you go to countries like China, the wine glass and the drinks glass will be on the left-hand side, and the chopsticks would be on the right-hand side, sitting on a pair of a little rester that the chopsticks rest on. So I'm more talking Western style dining. For any motor car fanatics out there, BMW, bread, meal, water, or bread, meal, wine for adults. So think about these little things that you can have tucked up your sleeve whenever you go to any environment. Don't panic. Now, Dr. Jacalyn, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When you see an array of cutlery like this, and I'm going to just switch cameras quickly. When you see a setting like this that I'm going to bring up for you shortly, it can be very confusing when you look at this full setting. Now, this is my bread plate. Remember the B, the ba, and obviously my drinks, my glasses are here on the right-hand side. So there is the D side of things. Now, you get the setting here, and obviously we've got a napkin on the front in this situation on the charger plate. It could also be on the side plate. But when you see all this cutlery here, Dr. Jacalyn, where does one start? Have you got any clue?
Oh my gosh, I used to know this. You start from the outside in or the inside out. I'm going to say the outside in. So over there, you've got your bread, your butter knife.
Yeah.
And then you've got your soup spoon on the other side.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that is exactly it. So for anyone out there that is sort of, again, looking at the shrapnel on the table and then, oh, there's lots going on this table. I'm finding this very confusing. Just think about clapping. Think about clapping. We don't clap our hands from going out and then we go from out and in. So think about that. So you've sat at the table, you've distinguished which is your bread plate, your drinks glasses, and then you think, okay, I've got this. Even if you don't know what the actual food is that's going to be served. Well, first off, we'll know because this is a soup spoon versus a pudding spoon. You can see the shape. Now, interestingly, back in the days, the soup spoon only came along much later. What we call cutlers, they were the people who made cutlery. They got sharp and clever. They realized that the housewives on the day who were doing all the shopping were the ones that were going to choose, and they were always looking to a bit of one-upmanship. And so the soup spoon was created. And actually, if you think about it, the soup spoon is very, very sensibly created because we sit from the side of our soup spoon. We don't bring our soup spoon in like that. But if you don't have a soup spoon, the old style oval spoon, you would still use the same way. Okay, so don't fret if you don't have a soup spoon, but you will know what a soup is because it's a nice round spoon. Okay, now I wanted to ask you, Dr. Jacalyn, have you ever seen this shaped knife before?
I have. I want to say it's for cheese. No.
For cheese? Okay, give me maybe something else you think it could be for.
It's not butter. I don't know.
Okay, so funny enough, you get a miniature version of this that might be on the table in front of you for your as to take the butter from the butter dish to your side plate. But this, in this situation, it's the same size as a starter knife. It's actually a fish knife. It's actually a fish knife. Again, this item, you'll see it's flat. It looks like it could be used for different things, but this is actually a fish knife, and you would hold it just the same way as you would a normal knife, and you would cut down and push the fish off the bone. It's something that a lot of people get confused with, and it's not, again, something that you need to have in your canteen of cutlery. But if you ever see this particular knife, it'll have a fork that goes with it, which will have an indentation on its shoulders. So it is known as a fish knife, and it is a very delicate flesh obviously on the fish, and so there's no need to, like we would maybe with a piece of steak or pork or lamb, where we need something a little bit sharper. This is purely just to ease the flesh of the fish off the bone, and for you to be able to load your fork with the ingredients that are on your plate. So the fish knife, again, that was another invention that the cutlers put into play much later on in life. So a little bit pretentious, but a lot of people in their canteens of cutlery do happen to have fish knife and fish fork. So as far as dining etiquette goes, a lot of people ask the question, when is it appropriate to put your napkin on your lap? Some people say, well, once we've seated, we see the host and hostess putting their napkin on their lap, or only when the food arrives. I'm going to give you some guidance and steering here. Once you've got seated, then I would just take your napkin and find the corner of the napkin, and just slowly to the side of you, just open up your napkin and fold it in half. Okay, and then place it on your lap. Now, there are going to be various contradictions here. I always believe and think it makes a lot more sense to have the open part of the napkin facing you, because when you pick up the napkin, you can split it, you can dab the sides of your mouth, and then you can close up. Dr. Jacalyn, in your case, if you're wearing your lovely lipstick, it's in the inside of your napkin. So if you were going to go to the loo, as in the restroom, the toilet, and you were to place your napkin on the top left-hand side of your bread plate, I always suggest you place your napkin on the top left-hand side of your bread plate and not on the chair. Now, again, there's going to be contradictions in the various books out there on dining etiquette. The reason why I don't say that the seat of the chairs, many people have sat on that chair, so the hygiene perspective. Secondly, you might transfer your lipstick or gravy or something that's on that napkin to that very expensive and very nice chair. It's perfectly acceptable to put the napkin over the arm of the chair, but I would always personally just take your napkin and place it above your plate on the top left-hand side. Dr. Jacalyn, any questions at this time or moment or point?
Oh, sorry. Yes. There we go. So what about our handbag? We have a handbag. Maybe it's a small, depending on the time of day. Where do we put it? Because I am never putting my handbag on the floor.
No. So in certain countries, people believe if you put your handbag on the floor, your money's going to run away. So we don't put handbags on the floor. And how many people do walk into the house having had their handbags on the floor and pop their handbag on the kitchen counter or something like that? You know, it's just autopilot. So I would always suggest, if you're in a safe environment, because when we sit at the table, people they always ask me, Philip, how do we sit? And I always suggest your bottom 3/4 on the chair and about a fist and a half away from your table. That's a really good sort of indicator between you and the table, sitting upright. So if you had a book and placed it on your head, you're sitting with beautiful posture. And I would then suggest, Dr. Jacalyn, that you place your handbag between your back and the back of the chair. That's as long as the back of the chair's got a full back and there's no gap where your handbag can go slipping off the back of the chair. And secondly, obviously in a safe environment, no one's going to walk past and lift your handbag from behind you. So it is something that I would suggest, or carry a little handbag hook that you can unclip it and put onto the side of your table and then hang your handbag off the hook, your handbag hook. But I'm a big fan of people taking respect for their handbags and being also very mindful that handbags, don't get dumped on the dining table, just as mobile phones and motor car keys do not get dumped on the table. You need to keep that table nice and pristine and clear of any gadgetry and your handbag. And many with your wallets, do not use the table to place your items on.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I have two other questions that I don't think I've ever asked you. The first is, what if you're at a formal event and you're wearing long gloves?
Take them off. Take your gloves. Absolutely. Take your gloves off. Yeah. Because again, those gloves, you might have been shaking hands. Look, ideally, I would always suggest taking a glove off and if you are shaking hands, flesh to flesh handshakes. But again, take your gloves off if you are dining.
Okay, that's a good one. I didn't know that. And the other one is, what is the other one? It just slipped out of my mind. It'll come back to me.
Hats?
No, not hats, but hats. Let's discuss hats. Keep them on or off?
In certain environments, if it's a luncheon, afternoon luncheon outdoors, a hat is perfectly acceptable. Men would always remove their hats indoors. And certain events, a smallish hat would be acceptable for a lady to keep on, but you wouldn't encourage or really want to have a huge big sun hat being worn indoors. And for that matter, if you go to church, be mindful of people behind you. If you go to a wedding, these beautiful hats are glamorous and look lovely, but just be mindful of who might be sitting behind you. So politely remove a large hat indoors if people are sort of sitting behind you or standing behind you and they try to engage with the speeches and with the bride and groom. So there's little things like that. It's just about being situationally aware. It really is an important aspect of our sort of, being mindful of other people. And that's where your etiquette and manners come in.
Brilliant. Thank you. I thought of the other one, and this actually was something that I had to make a decision about last week. I went to a lunch meeting, and I haven't been in person in 2 years, probably, in a lunch meeting. And so after the meeting, we decided we were all going to take a picture, and the server was coming over, and I said, but I have to fix my lipstick because I have red lipstick on. And I thought of you, and I thought, oh my gosh, do I take out my compact and my lip liner and adjust my lipstick here? And I know the answer is probably no, but I did it anyway.
I think if you do that discreetly, there was even a picture back in the day where the late Queen did something very similar. I wouldn't expect you to quickly run downstairs and go to the loo, but I wouldn't, again, just do, if you're going to put a dash of lipstick on, just do it nice and discreetly. It's something that I think is acceptable. The same thing, Les, while we're talking about lipstick, often people ask me, what about lipstick on glasses? And again, as long as you're not lining the whole rim of your glass with lipstick, I think you could very much, just, if you're feeling a little bit embarrassed, ask for a change of glass once the wine is finished, or just discreetly with your napkin even, just take the lipstick off a little bit if you so wish. But at the end of the day, you wonderful women wear lipstick to add beautiful sort of color and panache and elegance. So it's something that is acceptable. So don't fret. It's same on teacups and coffee cups. Don't fret too much about your lipstick transferring onto your glassware or your cup or your crockery. And there are obviously those lipsticks out there that don't stain so much and are almost they don't transfer that easily. So it's all these little things that you can add value to. Funny enough, many years ago we had a student who shared with us that she always takes a piece of tissue just before, once she's put her napkin on her napkin, she actually places the tissue in her napkin so as to not soil the napkin, which I thought was going quite above and beyond. But I thought it was also a lovely touch because, yeah, napkins, washing, and as we can appreciate, I think getting red lipstick out of lovely white linen can, so for some people, be a bit of a challenge. So that's just my answer to that sort of thing. And it's a good question because I would like to take that further into toothpicks. You often see people, Dr. JACALYN, how was your holiday? And you see this and they think it's polite. And in certain cultures, people do that. But I'm always going to give you the guidance of, if you need to get something out of your teeth, disappear, ask the maitre d', may I have a toothpick, as you're on your way out to the restroom, the loo, or the toilet, and go and do all your dental hygiene in private, downstairs or upstairs, or wherever the loo, the toilet, restroom happens to be. Little things like that. Now, Dr. JACALYN, if I were dining with you and I noticed you had a bit of spinach or a little bit of parsley stuck in one of your teeth, I might just discreetly do that, a little bit of sign language. But if I didn't know you, I might just pause rather not to embarrass you. You might afterwards say, why didn't you tell me I had spinach in my tooth? That's, it might come back to bite you. But if I know you and I would just respectfully go, just a little bit of sign language, and which give you the heads up that there's something in one of your teeth. So, there are little things that'll happen. And again, ladies and gentlemen, etiquette and manners around the dining table is about having a what can I do for you attitude. Dr. JACALYN, may I pass you the bread? Johnny, would you care for the salt and pepper? Michael, may I pour you some water? Though we don't stretch across tables, we need to be thoughtful. And if someone asks for the salt, then you pass the salt and pepper as a pair. In certain cultures, they will not take salt hand from hand. Pass the salt, pass the sorrow. So the little things like that we need. So you can place the salt and pepper in front of the other person, but there's no need to stretch and lean. We never, by the way, put a dirty napkin on a dirty plate, ever. No matter if it's a paper napkin or a linen napkin, doesn't matter where you are. Your napkin remains in your lap throughout the meal. Throughout the meal. The only time the napkin comes off, if you're going to excuse yourself and go off to the loo, then I would, as I said, take my napkin and place it on the top left-hand side of my setting. When I get back, I would discreetly put it back on my lap. Now, once the table's all clear, we might have a glass of wine left and a glass of water and a tea or coffee cup. We say, what a wonderful meal, and the table's clear. We would just take the napkin like that and place it where our place setting was set up, in front of us or to the left of us. So the napkin needs to be treated with great respect. If a napkin falls on the floor and you're able to pick it up discreetly and you feel comfortable to do that, do so. Otherwise, look for someone who is in the waitering team and say, would you bring me a fresh napkin, please? Okay, and treat our service staff with utmost respect. Pleases, thank yous, compliment. This is something that I make a big effort in doing. If I've had great service, if I've had a phenomenal meal, I will always, compliment the server. And if I've had a great meal, I'll ask the server, would it be possible to see the chef, or could I ask you to pass on a compliment to the chef? This is something that I would love you all to really incur into your daily lives of making that effort, not just at the dining rest at the food table, but wherever you go.
I love this, Philip. I have 4 questions I can think of right away, but I don't want to interrupt
That's all.
no, okay.
Please.
So the first question I'm thinking is, especially as someone who wears red lipstick, when I was at the restaurant, I thought to myself, oh, I have to really be careful about what I eat, because I don't want to have like a sandwich and I've got lipstick all over it. But yet you'll see people do that. And now it's on their face, it's on their food. What's the protocol for that?
Again, choice. I would go back to choice of lipstick. I don't think I would allow if I were wearing lipstick, my lipstick to deter me from something that I really choose to eat. But I wouldn't overthink too much about it. As long as you've got a napkin in hand and you've taken a bite, then you can then obviously dab your mouth a little bit like that, and then place your napkin back on your lap. I wouldn't overthink this at all. Dining etiquette, really, at the end of the day, is quite practical, believe it or not, and using a little bit of common sense, and you can navigate yourself around the table. And if you do get flustered, just watch what other people are doing if you don't know which item of cutlery to use and that sort of thing. But going back to the lipstick, don't overthink that.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to stay with the napkin for a moment. Many times when we go out to dinner somewhere where it happens to be warm, I'm just thinking of a few places in Florida, and they might have wicker. The chair might be wicker, the bench is wicker. You don't want to have those wicker lines on the back of your leg. So I would typically ask for a second napkin so I can sit on the napkin. Is that bad manners?
Practical. What a practical. That's practical. That's, it's something which, if you're feeling uncomfortable, you're not going to enjoy your meal because you're not sitting comfortably. So if a spare napkin can be brought to the table and you can lay it on the chair discreetly, that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay, brilliant. Next napkin question. I'm wearing black and I don't want to have all those little white fuzzies on me. Is it okay to ask for a black napkin?
If they have a black napkin, why not? I mean, with all due respect, a good quality napkin won't transfer anything onto you, and nor will a good quality paper napkin transfer onto you. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, look, if they've got a black napkin, that's absolutely fine. But I've got a dark pinstripe blazer on today, and this will not transfer onto me. It's a good quality linen napkin. And I think for anyone who loves throwing dinner parties or lunches, get good quality linen and your crockery and cutlery. Don't get too fussed about that. But I think quality linen, and same with quality paper napkins. You will even go into some really nice bistros and brasseries because they're cutting down costs on washing, and they're environmentally friendly, and you get some obviously recycled materials that they make wonderful, good quality napkins. Those always stand out. It's the same as anything and everything we do. It's all about quality and that attention to detail that you will remember. And again, I think if you enjoy entertaining, it's something that I would definitely think about. And color coordination and matching your napkin to your flowers maybe that are on your table, or to the table. The spread, the table, and what do you call it? I've gone blank now. The tablecloth. So yeah, you can really use nice, fine quality napkins and tablecloths, and it will really stand out. It'll give you a little bit of je ne sais quoi, as they say, and people will comment, "Oh, those are lovely. Well, I love the quality of X, Y, and Z." It really does make a difference.
It absolutely does. You definitely can tell a really high quality napkin. And to your point, I have gone to many upscale restaurants where I end up with that lint all over me from the napkin. So I think people should invest in good quality napkins, because you do remember, and it creates a nice experience. Nobody wants to get up with lint all over them. But now, we've discussed this before, and I really think it warrants discussing again. We're at the end of the meal, and the check comes, and the server is looking around and not sure what to do with the check, and no one's moving. And then maybe someone goes, okay, I'll take the check. And then the calculator comes out and they start going, Philip, you owe this. Jacqueline, you owe this. What is the proper protocol for paying the check?
Oh, my hat. That's always a tough question to answer. Look, I think when you're a student, that might be something that comes into play, and I believe there are apps there now that do all the division for you anyway. But honestly, I think personally, if you've been invited by someone to go for a meal and you've spoken about it up front, should we go, as that term Dutch, should we go 50-50 beforehand? Otherwise, the person who initiated the invite, I think personally, should really take charge of the bill. It's Dr. Jacalyn, it's always a tough one. Some people are saying, no, but you've done it so many times, it's my turn now. And it actually happened to me recently. A wonderful ex-trainer student from Mexico who he and I built up a really good friendship. He's in the wine industry. He eats out a lot. And he said our Train the Trainer course absolutely changed his life and his perspective on how he does business and how he interacts with people. And it's elevated his business to a completely different level. That aside, he's been in and out of London recently for the whiskey fair. He went off to Champagne to go and find some new champagnes to bring into Mexico and subsequently Italy. And we had a meal a couple of weeks ago, and he very kindly paid. And last night we went for a meal, and there was a bit of squibbling about it, but I said, look, you have been so generous in the past, I don't even want to hear about it. And I just took charge of it. So a bit of firmness, bit of sort of laying down the authority, but politely, and I managed to get away paying the bill. I just think we need to be a little bit more respectful with one another when it comes to these sort of things. There's no point having a squibble and a squabble, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to remember about the evening, where you've had an amazing evening, and all of a sudden the bill, the check, destroys the wonderful atmosphere and ambiance that has been created.
Absolutely. And I've shared this with you before, and I know it seems hard to believe, but I have been out with very affluent people. And when the bill comes, they could more than afford to pick up for everyone, but they start divvying it up. I didn't have an appetizer. I didn't have a dessert. You picked that bottle of wine. So I think that's another thing. What about the bottle of wine? Then there could be more than one bottle of wine, and maybe everyone's not drinking it. How does that get figured out?
Again, I'm going to go back to what I shared earlier. Yeah, with all due respect, just take it on board, suck it up. What comes around goes around, and unless one person really didn't have any alcohol, they've had a glass of water and they've had a soup, then maybe you could say, you know what, if we're all chipping in, then all you owe is $20. The rest of us will divvy the check up amongst ourselves, if that's okay with everyone. I think you've just got to take the moment, and someone has to take the initiative on how to sort that out. And maybe even up front, just get that out the way. Or if you discreetly want to pay, as you nip off to the loo, the restroom, give your credit card to the maitre d' or the waiter and say, I don't want any fuss at the table, please sort this out. There are many ways to sort this out.
Yeah, I love that when you just happen to stop by and say, hey, put it on my card, I'm taking care of it. And then people remember that.
They do. And I think, you will get people who always take advantage of the person who's the host. And I think that's unfair as well. Many occasions I've been surrounded by very wealthy people who've always taken charge of the bill, always. And there are times when I've had to sneak a credit card on my way to the loo and say, I don't want this bill to come in. And then afterwards, I have a few words, that person has a few words in my ear, but I can afford this. This is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not about affordability. It's about generosity and reciprocation. I truly believe what comes around goes around. It really and truly does. Use money as an energy. It's another area of our lives that we can incorporate into, doing our bit, playing our part. We can't always be on the receiving end of all the good things.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what about, this is a big topic, what about dress attire? Let's say having a meeting with someone and the person is a creative person and they're an artist,
Yes.
and they're dressed, the way that they dress, and I'm in a suit and you're in a suit. Are there expectations regarding etiquette of how we're supposed to dress, or can we show up as a reflection of how we want to represent ourselves?
Good question, as always. Dr. Jacalyn, I think depending on the environment we're going to, so if we're going to a smart restaurant and there's a dress code, no matter whether I'm as creative and as crazy and as loopy as anyone else, I'm used to wearing my cap backwards and, a torn t-shirt and denim jeans with ripped and trainers or flip-flops. We do need to be adaptable to the environment we're going to. But sometimes we go to brasseries and restaurants where it's very much a lot more relaxed. And as we all know, the world over, a lot of places that we eat out in now have become a lot more relaxed. They don't put down a strict dress code. yeah, I think one has to be accepting of the individual that you are engaging with and not judge them by what they're wearing. And that's something we talk about in a lot of our courses and a lot of our program. Let's not judge the book by its cover. Let's give everyone an opportunity to really prove themselves and to put their best foot forward. Let's not look at the clothing they're wearing. Although on the other side of the coin, how you show up every day and what you're wearing is going to have a positive effect and more of a more positive impact, I do believe, in how you show up. So, for example, I could, I suppose, present the show with you, Dr. Jacalyn, in a T-shirt, but that's not who the British School of Excellence is. We show up because this is who we are, and I do this for my own mindset and being, because it elevates me, but also to show respect to you, to our students, and to the listeners on USA Global TV and the various different channels that we have out there. So again, I think personally, to cut that very long drawn out answer to your quick question, do your research and turn up in a way that you want to be remembered. And if there's a dress code to follow, then absolutely follow that. But if it's a very more leaning to a more relaxed environment, then, and you want to turn up in your creative gear and that sort of thing, so be it. But there's no right or wrong answer to this, but I do believe that as individuals, we need to take a little bit more attention to detail.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I have so many more questions, but I'll go with this one. We are outside. I've got my sunglasses on. I come into the restaurant and I leave my sunglasses on.
No, absolutely not. And don't put your sunglasses on the table. Again, we want to connect with one another. Eye contact is so important. And unless you've got very sensitive eyes and it's very bright in that restaurant, which can happen, then, and everyone's got their sunglasses on, that's a completely different kettle of fish. But if you come into a restaurant, you're dining with people, I would absolutely encourage you to remove your sunglasses, definitely.
And here's another thing about sunglasses. I do this all the time. If I am out somewhere and I see you, I'm having a conversation with you, I will take my sunglasses off, because if you can't see into my eyes, then I don't feel like I'm being authentic. Is that
Absolutely.
improper?
Absolutely. No, take your sunglasses off and connect with that eye contact. We've talked about this. I think we've shared this before. Minimum 3 seconds eye contact, long enough to know the color of the other person's eyes. Then we go to what we call the human triangle. So go to the nose, the mouth, the chin, the ears, that sort of thing. But we need to maintain this facial connection.
You know what? I remembered that you said that when I went out to this meeting, and that's exactly what I did, the human triangle. So
it works, right? It works. It really does work. It's phenomenal.
It definitely is. And, you know, many times, like, I would try to stare in someone's eyes, and that's exhausting a lot of times, to just look directly in their eyes. And I know you said in some cultures that's even disrespectful.
It is. And people start to feel uncomfortable. They feel like they've been stared down and stared at. No one likes to be stared at. I mean, you often see in movies, hey, what you staring at? Hey, what you're looking at? You know, it's like, whoa, I'm not, oh, sorry. I just got stuck in a daze, or whatever it might be. So yeah, just that human triangle is gold. And we've worked with so many students of all ages who have really taken that on board. And they have come back with just saying, Philip, Leanne, also, that was unbelievable. It worked so beautifully. I felt comfortable. I got used to it, and I felt relaxed, so I could be more in the moment. I wasn't overthinking anything. I wasn't saying, you know, am I doing this correctly? You know, it's always act until you become. Keep practicing until it just becomes a very natural part of your makeup. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, Dr. Jacalyn, there's a question a lot of people ask. You know, I mentioned about Henry Ford, about where and how do we apply salt? And some people are going to think this is completely bonkers, but we never just take, a lot of people might take the salt cellar and just start grinding the salt over their food. Or there might be a little salt cellar with a spoon, and they'd start sprinkling it all over their food. You don't actually do that. Salt back in the day, there's history behind this, because salt back in the day was a very, very, very precious commodity. And I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the, Dr. Jacalyn, have you heard of the above the salt or beneath the salt? Have you ever heard of that particular expression?
Beneath the salt, I have.
Have you heard that before?
Yes.
And that actually comes from a a time back in a long time ago, where, as I said, salt was very, very expensive, and it really allowed only the super rich to be able to apply salt in their food. And it dates back to the medieval times, and it was a very, very valuable seasoning, as I mentioned to you, and it was placed in the middle of the dining table. And the Lord and his family were seated above the salt, and other guests or servants sat below. And that origin of the phrase "below the salt" or "beneath the salt," as people say, is one of the many English phrases that refer to salt. For example, worth one salt, and obviously take with a grain of salt, or the salt of the earth, and so forth. This is an indication of the long-standing importance given to salt in society. And yeah, it's funny how all these little things sort of rear their heads or come about. In medieval England, salt was expensive and only, as I said, only affordable by the higher ranks of society. And its value rested very much on its scarcity. And so salt was respected with great, literally little bits of salt were applied to one's dining dish. And I'd love to demonstrate on how it was applied. So, and it's something that my mum taught us. And when I was back in South Africa recently, you know, dining at the lunch table or dinner table, my mum and along with the family would apply their salt in this specific way. So I would love you all just to humor me. I'm just going to switch the camera, and it really is something that I do enjoy sharing. So with this particular scenario, I've got a dark salt here, so just so you can see it on the white plate. So what I would do is, once I've tasted my food, I would administer the salt just on the side of my plate, just over here. And obviously I hold my knife, by the way, like this. We don't hold our knife like a pencil, okay? We hold our knife so it's tucked in there, and we've got, so we can push down. Okay, and at the same time, if I can just balance my camera here, hopefully it's going to work. I'll clip it on there. So, yeah, this is working. I think we've got action here. Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
So if I've got my cutlery, and again, I would dip just the tip of my knife into the salt, and I would place it onto the back of my fork. So I would put the food onto the fork, and then I would dip my knife and just place it on the back, on top of the food. And that is how you would administer salt to your knife and fork, to your food. This particular position, I've got the knife and fork in, so facing me, this is my resting position. I'm resting between mouthfuls. We don't hold our knife and fork in our hands, rearing to go as if we haven't seen food in 10 days. Once we have a mouthful, then we rest our knife and fork like this. So this is something to take into account. We don't, it's not very common in the Western tradition to zigzag. So in other words, we cut everything up and then we move the fork to our right hand and we start diving into our food. It's not common at all in the sort of fine dining or even in any particular dining. It's something that we just don't seem to do. So there is a lot of merit in how we hold our knife and fork. So I'm always going to suggest your knife is tucked into the palm of your hand, and we keep our index finger on the top of the fork. And we do exactly the same with the knife. And we, by the way, we never do this, ever. If you need to sort of take a little bit of food off your knife, you do it close to the plate. So I'm just going to show for demonstration purposes. So imagine I've got food on the top of my fork. I've dipped my knife into the salt, and I've just placed it on the top. But that would be all done close to my plate. So the salt was a very, very important ingredient. And even with the salt shaker, salt grinder, you grind a little bit of salt onto the corner of your plate. Or the salt shaker, you would just hold the salt shaker upside down and pour a little mound of salt onto the side of your plate.
That's really fascinating. I didn't know that about the salt or about the cutlery, how you hold it. So the fork is never up. It's never up.
Never up.
No.
Never up. Only with a pasta. If you've got spaghetti, pasta, that sort of thing, you would hold the fork in the right hand and you would do. And by the way, in Italy, for those of you who are well traveled, you would never, the Italians would laugh at you, or they would frown upon you using your spaghetti and a spoon to twirl it. But if that makes you feel comfortable, do it. This is not about a list of do's and don'ts, in other words. This is about how do you conduct yourself with confidence. As long as you adhering to your table manners and you feel comfortable and you need to use a spoon and your fork for the spaghetti, so go ahead and do it. Don't feel that you've got to do it the Italian way, because it takes practice. Once you feel confident in just using the fork, then go ahead and do it. But don't feel that you are you have bad table manners because you're using a spoon and a fork to incorporate the eating of your spaghetti. So yeah, we very rarely turn the tines up like that. We don't scrape our peas on there either. As tempting as it is, you can push them onto the back of your knife, back of your fork, and then administer, and then we rest our cutlery on our plates in the resting position.
Fascinating. Once again, learning new things. And Philip, you actually have a course that people can sign up for. Tell us about this.
We do many courses. So we do this in live coaching. So this coming Monday, I've got an amazing woman who's booked a business etiquette and excellence program, one-on-one, in person. And part of that program is going to be the dining etiquette module, where we will go and have a full 3-course meal together. And I will be guiding and steering her through that journey, obviously with presentations before we go and sit down. So there's that approach, one-on-one, in person. And then we have this amazing e-learning program, which has been put together. I've got an accomplice, Duda Graciano, who completed Train the Train in 2018 with the organization, originally from Brazil. And we put this wonderful e-learning program together. It's very straightforward to follow. You download it off our platform. It's yours for life. It's got downloaded material that gives you further sort of guidance and steering on how to conduct yourself at the dining table, or any table that incorporates food.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this. We have the link in the comments, so we encourage as many people as possible to go ahead and sign up. And Philip, thank you again for just like so many fabulous tips that, as much as I thought I knew, I really don't know.
Okay, I love that. And we love sharing. So anybody, pick up the phone, get a hold of us. We love sharing. We love giving people guidance and steering. We impart knowledge to give you confidence at the end of the day. And Dr. Jacalyn, I'm going to throw a curveball at you right now. So a lot of people, the final dish of a lot of meals often is the pudding or the dessert. In some cultures, they might serve the cheese and then the pudding dessert. In other cultures, so here in England, we would serve cheese only at the end of the meal. So we would have maybe a soup, then we might have a salad, and then we might have a main course, which could be fish, meat, or poultry. And then we would serve a pudding or dessert, and then the cheese would come out. And there's a whole thing about cheese etiquette as well. But I know our time has galloped away with us today. But when it comes to pudding cutlery, okay, we have a wonderful rhyme here in our organization. I'm not sure where the rhyme comes from, but it's a wonderful rhyme. So when we're having our pudding or our dessert, we always have a fork and a spoon. And the spoon is in our right hand, the fork is in our left hand. And again, the tines are down. So we never eat our pudding, apart from a few little exceptions, such as a creme brulee, maybe a ball of ice cream. But even with a ball of ice cream, you can still use a knife and fork. Maybe a panna cotta, you might just use a teaspoon. So there will be a few exceptions to the rule. But 9 times out of 10, we say spoon never, fork ever. It's fork and spoon together. So we always use the fork and spoon together. And the spoon is the vehicle, not the fork. Even if I'm having a fruit salad, I'm pushing the chopped strawberries, I'm pushing the banana, I'm pushing the apple onto my vehicle. And by the way, we don't use this spoon like we did the soup spoon. We're coming in at an angle, okay? And we rest, just as we were doing earlier, between mouthfuls. Everything is resting. So with soup spoon, we rest our soup spoon at 3 o'clock, and the finished position is at 6 o'clock. And the resting position with our knife and fork and our dessert spoon and fork are very identical to the way I showed you earlier when it came to resting. So that is how I would rest my pudding cutlery on my plate. Okay, so spoon never, fork ever. It's fork and spoon together. So again, it is really important that people understand the significance and the importance of how this all works. So in this particular situation, I would be cutting down with my spoon into my pudding, cut down. I would then use the fork to pop the pudding onto my plate, push it on, and then up like that. Then I would rest my cutlery between mouthfuls. Okay, and that is the finished position. That's the only time the tines come up and the spoon comes up. That is my finished position for my pudding, and the finished position for my main course cutlery is the only time when the tines come up is exactly like this over here at the 6 o'clock. In Europe, you might see 5 o'clock. Okay, that is the finished position, there or there. Okay, and as I said, with the soup, if I had a soup plate, which I've got here, if I'm having my soup resting position is at 3 o'clock, and my finished position is at 6 o'clock. Now, when we're eating our soup, we don't eat our soup and pull it towards us. We go away from us, and we go off the back of the plate. We go away from us, and we go off the back of the plate. And then we would bring it up here, sip. We would go off the back of the plate, and we would sip. And then we would rest at 3 o'clock. And then, as I said, at 6 o'clock. And then when the soup was getting less and less, we would actually tilt. Now, I don't have enough hands here. I should have kept it on my boom. But we actually tilt the soup plate away from us. We tilt the soup plate, and we use the spoon to go into that pool that we're creating. Once we actually tilt the soup plate, we actually tilt it. I'm going to show you. We tilt it like that, and we would do that. Take the spoon off the back there, and then bring the soup up to our mouth. We don't lean over our soup bowl either. We don't lean over our food plates either. We sort of just generally come in to meet the food. We don't lean over and hang over it, our food or our soup or our pudding.
Oh, fascinating. I'm learning so much. This is something that you really have to practice. You have to take your course and just commit it to memory.
It is. And when it becomes natural and you're not thinking, oh, what do I do? You ensconce yourself into the dinner party, the luncheon. You have great conversations. You're not worried about, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? It just flows. It just is natural. And like everything with practice, you become a master at it, and it's second nature. It just falls into place.
Well, I'm excited to practice this and be able to tell you that I've accomplished it.
Well, at some stage we could even do the next session where we actually bring some food to the table. I'll set up the studio camera properly, and we could even, if at some point we can do that. There's so many wonderful things we can share, and that we love sharing.
Well, I think that would be fantastic, especially when I have some questions about how we eat certain food, whether it's olives or people who have shellfish. I can't eat shellfish, but what they do with the shells. And I think there's a lot of area there that we could explore.
Completely, 100%.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Phil, for another fabulous show. As I mentioned, we do have the link to the course there available for people to check it out. And we have your banner here, but for people who can't read it and they want to get involved, they want to sign up, they want to learn etiquette and manners, what's the best way to reach out?
Anybody and everybody out there, please do send us an email to hello, HELLO, at thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Reach out to us on WhatsApp on +44 780 885 9914, and do take a look at our website, which is www.thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. There's a lot of information on there. We've got wonderful articles that you will find so useful. There's our YouTube channel where we share some wonderful, amazing information and tools that will give you that opportunity to start putting your best foot forward.
Thank you, Philip. I really appreciate you so much and everything that you are teaching at the British School of Excellence. Another fabulous show. Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. I'm wishing you a fantastic weekend. I know you've still got a full day of programs and interviews and things going on, but enjoy your weekend, and I look forward to engaging with you very soon. And to all of you for listening and watching, it's a true joy to have this opportunity to connect with you all.
Thank you so much. Just one comment as we close out. On Monday, we are producing a 17-hour live event that will take us all over the world. It's called World Jenny's Day, and Janetta Barry and the Epiphany Process are hosting. So please do tune in. That's what I'll be doing Monday for 17 hours from 5 in the morning, New York time, till 10 p.m. in the evening, New York time. So, but we will be back with our shows for the rest of the day. Thank you again, Philip, and thank you, the British School of Excellence, and thank you, everyone out there. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.